got a brand new episode here. It's episode 19 of Off the Cuff podcast. This one's going to be really off the cuff because we've got some changes to talk about. And, well, I guess we could start off with, we got a new voice here.
Yeah, you seem just a little bit. Oh no, yeah, different guy sitting in the chair here. Deputy Chief Matt Hansen here now taking the reins. Going to be our host and guider here through the Off the Cuff podcast series.
Yeah, so we've been away for a while. I mean, just address the elephant in the room. Been away for quite some time. Want to say it's probably getting close to 18 months since we've been live.
Thereabouts 18, yep.
And chatted with our audience. Been through a lot of changes, a lot of departmental changes.
Right.
I mean, top down, we were talked last year, you and Lieutenant Cᴜғɣ at the time had talked about new chief, new direction. Since then, we've had a massive change.
Exactly.
Massive change.
Whirlwind, I think, is the best way to put it. Probably the most change we've ever had in our department, probably the most challenging times we've had, probably in the history of the department. I think I was counting the other day, Matt, I think you said about 11 different promotional changes and handoffs there. So definitely a lot of change to be had in the last couple of months. Yeah,
I think that's exactly what it was. I think it was 11. And, I mean, even outside of our promotions, I mean, our agency was dealt a blow last spring with the tragic suicide passing of Sergeant Jason Wallace. I mean, really left our department reeling, left us kind of searching inside,
right,
kind of where things were at. Took this staff, took everybody, it took us, just a while to work through that. Never done. I mean, I don't think it'll ever be done. I mean, you and I, we have conversations about Jason and his time here still.
Right. Yeah. And for me, I mean, it's very much close to home. Jason and I kind of grew up together. We were same grade, same class. I vividly remember a birthday party of mine kind of right around Halloween time is we were enacting a Cops episode, so I got him on the old VHS recording, him banging on, yelling, police open up and stuff like that. So yeah, him and I, friends growing up, knew him very well. It just kind of, this job gets to people at sometimes. We never thought it would, we'd be one of the departments that would have to plan stuff like that, but unfortunately it is. The positive aspect of it, I think, is we've come out more strong, more resilient after that. It's certainly something we'll always be in the back of our minds, but going forward here, I think we're definitely in a good place right now.
Yeah, well said. When you look at the 11 positions, we had lost some to the retirement.
Yep.
Last year we had Lieutenant Cᴜғɣ, who was on this microphone. We had Dustin Dossinger, our chief, leave us
Yep.
last year also. And we had a couple officers leave us to different agencies. So we brought a lot of officers on. So we've been busy. I mean, we've been busy with a lot of different things, but training, hiring, recruitment have been huge here in the department lately. Let's chat about the lateral program. You've been a big part of hiring people and bringing people on board, but what's been the benefit of Chief Siani's newest piece, which has been our lateral program?
Right. Historically, the department, we've kind of been known as an entry-level agency. We get some guys, especially from out of state here. They really don't have the roots here. They get some experience, and then they go closer to home. And you can't blame them. A lot of younger officers, certain families, and there's something to be said about having grandma, across the road, be able to drop the kids off and stuff like that. So we understand that. But going forward, Chief Siani, like you had mentioned, had implemented this lateral program that many other agencies are now latching onto across the nation, and it's we're welcoming in officers that have a vast amount of experience, and we got very fortunate here this past 12 months here to have hired on several solid officers that are doing exceedingly well for our agency and for our community, and so that shows a testament to the success of our lateral program so far.
Yeah, because I think it was. I mean, you had talked to other guests previously on the podcast here. This job is similar to other jobs where it takes a long time to figure it out. And then even when you figure it out, there's still a learning curve. It's always a learning curve. But, I mean, we're talking a year investment into a brand new officer before that officer can go to a call and feel entrusted and confident and able to kind of problem solve. So being able to bring these laterals in, I mean, it really speeds up the game, benefiting the community backwards. So it's been excellent. I mean, it's been excellent for our laterals coming in. It's been excellent for our training staff. And, I mean, realistically, the community is the one that benefits the most.
Absolutely.
By bringing good quality cops into that. Let's chat a little bit, Mikey, about couple weeks ago, I was able to go in front of the commission and do 2023's year-end book.
Yep.
A couple of highlights out of that was what we had talked about already, which was a lot of our change. The other piece too, which is not necessarily the best of all news, has been we've been noticing some trends here in town. This weekend was again another a kicker. We really are feeling something, and we just kind of want to share it with the community. We want to kind of share what trend we're heading at as far as law enforcement in this area, some of the challenges that we're facing, and just kind of be open and transparent about it.
Absolutely. Yep. And it's kind of difficult. The Dickinson Press reached out. We got a good working relationship with them. They want a little bit more data with that year-end report. And, they were asking the question, why we're seeing this metric here and it's, this much increase. What do you attribute to that? And we found it exceedingly difficult to pinpoint exactly what it is that caused this crime statistic to be up or something to decrease, something like that, because there's so many different factors. I mean, the overall arching trend is Dickinson's gotten bigger. Ever since the oil boom, a lot more people have moved in. People, not from this area, maybe have a different look at. Just how our community makeup is, and that sometimes brings more crime, brings more welfare checks. So statistically, it's just a matter of time before we have an increase of something. The other part of that equation, though, too, is obviously the substance abuse that we're having, the fentanyl crisis. That you can tie that into theft related items and. So it just starts to be a big ball of wax. It's hard to, again, try to figure out exactly what is causing these increases and decreases. Yeah,
I mean, I think the real answer is if we knew what it was, we would be trying to solve it, and it'd be an easy answer for us to give the press. We would just tell them flat out, this is what we figured out. We're working on it. Fact of the matter is we don't know exactly. It could be a mixture of all kinds of parameters. Right. You bring up the fentanyl crisis that we're dealing with. We're not immune to that in this part of the world. When it comes to our overdoses, or it comes to one concerning fact that we have, that actually this week Chief Ciani is going in front of the commission and giving our quarterly report, is we've had several children that have tested positive for hard illicit drugs here in the past 4 months. Really concerning. It's one thing, obviously, if it's somebody making a conscious choice or under the influence of those things and having addictions, but it's a whole other thing when it's a child, helpless victim in that circumstance. So we know we have something there, and we're all working diligently here to try to figure out what exactly is the cause, so we can start trying to remedy. And
I guess maybe you can allude to what our involvement is with the task force and stuff, and how we are trying to combat that and what we got going on there.
Yeah, so I mean, it has now been nearly 18 months that we've actually added another member into the task force. So not only do we give the task force here ran locally out of Dickinson, which is in our BCI office, we give them one of our officers, just like the Stark County Sheriff's Office, Dunn County Sheriff's Office. But we really saw this trend coming a while ago, and we wanted to maximize it. Biggest agency in the region, we thought best thing to do was, let's put our money where our mouth is. Let's give them another officer. So we have 2 full-time officers that are dedicated to just working and running and trying to help remedy some of the drug problems we have in this community. They have been making headway, but it's, man, this has been years and years going, and our guest later will probably be able to give us even a greater expansion of what that looks like from his perspective later.
Right. Because the frustrating thing in any department, any community can probably attest to it is like whack-a-mole. You find one distributor or one dealer, which is where the task force is concentrated at. The personal use stuff, it really is being chalked up to more of a substance abuse, a mental health type of thing. So we understand, we've seen that incarceration, it just doesn't work, right? So we're concentrating on the dealers, the distributors, the people that are peddling this poison to the community, and that's where when our task force gets these cases, they often, we try to tie in a federal nexus to it. The instance you have the DEA or FBI being able to tie into the distribution portion of it, and even morphs into the human trafficking side of it and stuff like that. That's where they're really concentrating their efforts. And our 2 guys that we got on the task force right now, they're doing solid work. It takes some time to develop cases and stuff like that. I know it's a lot of people watch the TV and they think within the hour before the episode's done we'll have a guy behind bars and through the court system. Not quite the case. In order to have a very solid case and something that can withstand a jury of peers, is we have to have solid investigations, and that's what those guys are working on.
Yeah, well said. I mean, I really do think that the focus of our local BCI unit and the task force tries to do a really good job of maximizing local impact, right, while still being able to have enough teeth to know that this thing can go further, can go federal, and you can have, I mean, the federal legal system has a little bit more length to the sentences, right, and things, so they do play a good game when it comes to figuring out how to locally impact us with maximizing the effectiveness of it when it comes to those dealers and such.
Exactly, right.
Yeah, that wasn't the only thing, you know, really, when you look at 23's numbers and you're trying to dissect where are things at. And then, I mean, obviously, even though we did 23's year end, we had it done for a while. We had been talking about what is the trend for 24, and we're starting to see it still in 24, and it's kind of two-pronged. It would be, number one, it would be we're starting to see person-on-person crimes increase in the city.
Yeah, the assaults. Yep.
Assaults, exactly it. And that would be not just simple assaults, which would be like your typical bodily injury. Mm-hmm. Concerning factor that I've been pulling up is the aggravated assaults.
Right.
Aggravated assaults can be anything from utilizing weapons, could be stabbings, it could be using anything, other kind of weapons, wrenches, things. Mm-hmm. Can also be a serious enough situation. Maybe somebody's got broken bones from the assault.
Right.
So nothing that we want to have in our community, obviously. We're seeing those increase. Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm on year 20 right now with the PD. Up until the oil boom started, 2009, 2010. Very seldom did you hear of an aggravated assault arrest. I mean, it was exceedingly rare. Within a 2-month time span, I remember responding to 2 separate calls at a bar, the same bar, 2 separate people, 2 separate assailants. Both got hit in the face extremely hard, so hard that it burst their
orbital bone.
Orbital bone, yeah. and like a globe. Piece of your eye, like your eyeball, the globe in your eyeball, burst that up, so they're permanently blinded from an assault like that. And we hadn't heard of any of that type of assault in Dickinson up until the oil boom started, and here back to back within a month we've been seeing those. So yes, those have been on the uptick quite a bit. The simple assaults, like you were referring to, we're seeing a little bit of a decline there, but then last year, for whatever reason, what it is, and again, the news agencies are kind of wanting to know why, what's changed, and who knows? I mean, our guess is as good as anybody else's.
Yeah, and that's the difficult piece, is when you try to look at the numbers and you're trying to see a trend, you're trying to find out where
and
things
prevent it. Yeah,
exactly, where things went off or how things began to increase. It's difficult. You know, we went through COVID. COVID was a weird time for policing, and it was a really weird time for criminal policing, because we didn't have local bar establishments were not open and functioning like they are now.
Right.
So we have a couple of years of some data that's not necessarily pure, or it's giving us maybe misleading us maybe slightly. But these last 2 years, we're definitely seeing we're moving in a direction that we don't want to be moving in. We're seeing this year already. We have more aggravated assaults this year than what we had in the last 5 years outside of last year, put together.
Sure.
And we just don't want to, that's an area that we're really trying to combat. Our patrol division really are the ones that are dealing with a lot of this, boots on the ground. Obviously, the investigations team is coming in on the back end. But it's going to take a group effort, and it's going to take, obviously, the community coming together with us, just being aware of this, that's a problem. I mean, we can't push something under the rug and never talk about it. I think it's important to just be open about what we're dealing with and what we have here in the community.
Exactly, right on. Couldn't have said it better.
Yeah, the last piece we talked about a little bit. This weekend we were busy. You just put a press release out. So, yes. I mean, the press release has already been out. I'm assuming it's circulating through all of the networks here. But Patrol had a very busy, very active last 5-6 days. You want to kind of highlight a little bit of what we were dealing with?
Certainly, yes. Specifically to the pursuits that we did the press release on. Of course, the podcast might be a little dated here, but we had one pursuit start on Friday evening about 10:30 at night. One of our officers in town here had located a stolen vehicle, kind of driving downtown. Attempted to pull it over. Driver decided not to stop and keep going. I should back up. The day prior to this vehicle was reported stolen out of Gladstone, so it was kind of known to us in the area that we were kind of looking for it. And kudos to our officer for the heads up on that. Ultimately, the pursuit ended up out of town, high rate of speed. The driver ultimately made a U-turn kind of by the Green River rest area, started coming back towards town. And according to the reports now, we're seeing some of the body cam off of that. We had one officer who was initially trailing. Now they're having the pursuit come back towards them. Try to do a spike strip deployment on the vehicle. It's scary, man. You see, I watched in your office here this morning. Extremely close call for this officer. He was standing behind the vehicle, getting the spikes going, and the vehicle veered off into the ditch. Hit an approach that the officer was kind of parked on. Went airborne and missed our officer probably what he was guessing by about 10 feet. So we almost had an extremely tragic outcome because this guy decided to flee law enforcement. Ultimately, the suspect crashed his vehicle, rolled it. I had some pretty severe injuries, but he's currently in one of the hospitals out east somewhere getting treatment for that, and he'll be facing charges as soon as he gets back. Yeah. And then that was the same crew later on Sunday, about the same time, 10 o'clock in the evening. Our crews were going down to a protection order violation. And as they're en route, I believe it was the same officer that might have been.
I think it was the exact
our same officer. Yeah, he again, good heads up, located the suspect for this and driving away. Attempted to stop him again. Went down Villard, extremely high rate of speed, easily outdistancing an officer. And we have to balance, the risk of the pursuit versus the benefit of apprehending somebody. But in this case, this particular individual, no care whatsoever. They were estimating about 100 miles an hour crossing right by Hardee's there, the traffic stop or the traffic light.
Through a red light, it should be noted.
Through a red light. Okay, I didn't know that part. That's so the fact that nobody died. That's incredible. So ultimately, our officers did lose sight of him initially. The vehicle was found abandoned. South College Avenue. Tried to do a foot search, but they didn't find anybody initially. So we do have the name for that. We know who it is. Just a matter of time. They've fled on us before. Again, it just kind of goes to show that some people just don't abide to authority. When they in this case they had multiple warrants, the previous one had multiple warrants. This one potential protection order violation, and they just continued to flee from police and make an extremely dangerous situation, not only for the officers involved, but obviously the public here. The fact that nobody was T-boned in this particular instance is quite a blessing.
Yeah, I know when this last weekend when I found out about that, I mean, immediately what jumped to me was last year's tragedy in Mercer County. Mercer County,
Deputy
where
Martin,
Deputy Martin was tragically taken in a situation that sounded eerily similar to the situation that our officers were put in the other day. And we're just thankful. We're thankful that all of our officers are okay.
Yes,
they came through it. They get a nice couple of days off here, but we're glad. Again, we're noticing some trends here, and kind of brings us full circle why it is that bringing quality police officers is just so beneficial to 100%. Us.
Yep.
That's kind of what brings us to our guest here. We decided that for our first guest of this new format of our show, we wanted to highlight one of these new recruits that we brought on, who really isn't a recruit. That's kind of maybe the gray hair gives it away. There you go. Yeah, maybe an inappropriate term to call him recruit, but we were lucky enough to reach out. Myself and Robert had conversations. This is Robert Kleinholz.
Hello, thank you.
We had conversations, would you say, dating back to March, possibly?
Oh, yes. Yeah, March of this year. Yeah. We started talking about me moving away and working my way west, as it were, northwest. And here we are. It worked out.
Yeah, it did work out. We were able to get you into town back at late April, I think, and we brought you into the department right at the beginning of June.
Yes.
If I remember right. So you've gone through training here with us, and we have some stories that we'll probably get into here from our city at least.
Okay.
But before we get too far, why don't you go ahead and tell the audience, tell everybody, who is Robert Kleinholz and what made you want to become a lifetime police officer all the way up until you're sitting in this booth here with Lieutenant Handel and I?
Well, I'm a little older, so that could be a long story. To be honest with you, I was born and raised in Powhatan, Virginia, which is a small county outside of Richmond, Virginia, the capital city. One of my childhood friends, his father was a homicide detective for the City of Richmond Police Department. His name was Cecil Glunt. And growing up, I would stay at their house, and this man was he was a Vietnam veteran, and he was just larger than life to me. And when he spoke, you listened. Just a huge part of my childhood coming up. And then as I grew up, my parents divorced when I was young, and I spent a lot of time watching TV. And so I would say a lot of my morals and convictions came from the heroes that I saw on television.
Yeah, very cool.
You know, the television shows, back then they had a moral to every episode.
Yeah.
And so you understood what was right and what was wrong. And as I got into adulthood, I was going to college, and Richmond is quite a tough town. When I was going to college, they were the deadliest city in America. And I thought to myself, you know, I could do this, you know, maybe. I wasn't sure, but I could be like Cecil Glunt. So I decided to join the Army Reserve.
Okay.
I was 22 at the time.
So are you done with college at this point?
No, I never actually quite finished. I went to college on and off for about 10 years. I joined the Army Reserve. I got through basic training, and I felt, you know, as a military police officer, I felt if I could do that, then maybe I could do the city of Richmond. Because I felt the city of Richmond was much tougher than the Army. So I did that, and I kicked it around for a little bit and got deployed to Germany in support of Operation Joint Guardian, which was Kosovo, the Baltic states.
That's got to be like, what, late 90s, right? Thereabouts?
Yeah, 99
okay.
to 2000.
Yep.
Yeah, so what for Y2K, it was I was actually at a riot in Baumholder, Germany. There was myself, another officer, and at midnight, Y2K, the bars let out. And unfortunately, in this area, 3 bars let out into the same alley, and the fight was on.
Yeah.
So it was me and my partner. I'm trying to cover him. He got knocked down, and we've called for backup. And only backup coming is the German police. And when the German police show up, the nightsticks come out and they start swinging. It was quite the mess. But that was my first real introduction to a critical incident.
Sure.
You know, just me and him and 300 people, just trying to stay alive. And from then on, I knew I had a taste for it. So I spent a year in Germany as an MP there in Baumholder, Germany. And when I came back, I applied for Richmond Police. And I got the job. I was hired September 20th of 2001, which was...
Right after 9/11.
Yeah.
Yep, right after 9/11 you get on.
And from there, did the academy, which there, the academy, you go back and forth, but it's 6 months with 12 weeks of FTO.
Okay.
And it focuses a lot on officer safety. My academy class was 24, and we graduated 16. There's a 25% dropout rate.
Yeah.
Because they really push you that if this is not for you, then please, there's the door. We wish you good luck. But we needed people that could handle the pressure. So it's very physical. A lot of getting pepper sprayed and OC gas on the weekly basis, and they torture you.
Weekly? Ooh, that's rough.
Yeah.
So when
one's good enough. Yeah.
So when you talk about this being, obviously Richmond's a rough town at this point in time when you're jumping on, it sounds like the training program is kind of focused to that.
Paramilitary
style. Do you think the dropout rate was something that your trainers knew? They knew that just certain people weren't going to be able to hack it, and it was for everybody's benefit, not just their benefit, but everybody else's benefit?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. No, there's definitely, at that time, there was a push. Like, this is serious. You know, you're going to be facing life and death on a weekly basis. They were averaging over 100 homicides a year. Now, once you get into the 2000s, they had worked on a little bit, and in 2004, I think it was the highest in the 2000s, which was 95. That's like 40 people per 100,000.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and so if you compared that to here, that would be like 10 a year.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's some ridiculous number. I'm not that great at math. But we could go to a homicide or 2 a day. Sometimes shootings every day. There are bullets flying. It wasn't unusual to find a bullet hole in a police car. I mean, this is a tough town.
Yeah.
You know, fights, riots, bar fights every night. I mean, there was a lot going on.
Well, I remember it was one of our last conversations before you had gotten here to Dickinson. You had told me, and this is a testament to who Robert is as a human being. He's worked in Richmond. I'm going to fast track your story ever so slightly. You've been working in Richmond for 20 years. You work your last shift. You're out on the beat. You ended up taking a gun off of somebody, and you called me, and you had told me, like, turned in my papers. I just got a gun off the street. They don't make police officers like this very often, to where somebody who's just got the conviction and the eagerness to just continue to do this job. And, yeah, especially in that environment, you know, the perspective that he just had, the amount of homicides, the amount of things that you've seen. We try to think about that in our world, and it's just...
It's almost unfathomable. You really, you know, a lot of these kids growing up around here, and we've really small community, and you know, like I was explaining earlier, the aggravated assault type of thing. Yeah, you just don't hear that sort of stuff, but almost on a daily basis for the better part of 20 years, you're going through it. And what's the secret at it? What kept you going?
To always get back on the horse. You know, it's just like cowboys. You know, you fall off, you get scared, you get back on the horse. You know, and you're falling off all the time, but you just keep showing up, and you compartmentalize. So work is work, and home is home, and people at home be like, "How was your day?" And you know, I come home and got bruises or got hit in the face, and be like, "Normal day."
Yeah,
nothing. It's okay. Just
rub some dirt on it. Yeah. That's crazy.
You know, and yes, you do see a lot of things, and you can't let them get to you. And you're either made for it or you're not. I served with a lot of just really good people, but we also had a lot fall by the wayside. So my code number was 2798, and in those 22 years, they're getting close to have hired another 2,000 people.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know?
And how many sworn is Richmond compared to our 49 sworn? How many sworn is Richmond?
When I got hired, 650. It got up to 750 at the peak. But after the riots in 2021, 2020, if you take into account deployed, injured, or other leave, they're in the 550s now.
Okay.
They're hurting bad.
Yeah, you guys got cut hard then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In 2020, there were 20 people on my shift, and that was in one precinct out of 4. So every precinct had 100 men. But yeah, there was about 20 guys on my shift, and when I left, their minimum staffing is 12. When I left, the shift had 10 or 11.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's about I think last time I checked, Bismarck probably is what that, and that's a fraction of the population.
And
crazy.
you could be in roll call by yourself. You know, now they had a split shift, so there was a couple hour difference. But if I come into work and I sit down and I'm the only one in the roll call, that means for that 2-hour overlap, I will be the only one in 1/4 of the city. That means there's no backup coming.
Yeah.
You know, and it doesn't matter what it is, you still got to respond. You know, it was not unusual to go to violent domestic in the projects, which is 3,000 or 4,000 people, by yourself. You know, no units available citywide. You need an ambulance, 2-hour wait. You know, and you just got to go.
So that safety you were talking about, your training, when did that first start paying off? Are you realizing that the training that Richmond gave you was actually setting you up for just a successful career and a good chance to remain healthy and happy in this career?
Oh my goodness. I had a lot of people early on, really good men, a lot of veterans, just the people that they would look for. It was a lot of military, because you have some military bases around there, but the recruiters would go to the military bases like Fort Bragg. And so you're getting Rangers and you know, good solid people who already had a talent for the job. And those guys, you paid attention and you took the good parts. And this was urban policing, you know. And so there were bars you didn't go into by yourself. There were parts of town that you probably shouldn't go into by yourself. I remember that they did a survey of the officers, and they said, please list every 24-hour open-air drug market in your precinct. We came up with a list of 44.
Yeah.
You know, where you could buy drugs. There's no way to police all of that. And so you really had to keep your head on a swivel, the 1,000-yard stare that they talk about, you know, being aware of what's going on around you. And if you're going to do anything proactive, have someone with you or have someone nearby. So you would work as pairs. And, you know, it was paramount. I think the officers here are fantastic. Who's ever doing your hiring has really got a knack for it. There's some just phenomenal talent that you've hired. But there's little differences. There's differences from urban policing to where we are here. And I hear it and it bothers me. It was probably about half an hour ago. An officer asked for a back on a traffic stop. And then I hear animal control come over. And I hear someone else mark out. And I hear, no. You don't talk. We were very quiet. Keep the air to a minimum until someone gets with them.
Yeah.
You know. But that's the tempo is not the same here. It's completely different. You know. Everywhere I went before this year, I mean, like you said, April, you know, when I left, April 22nd. You know, it was, there are going to be guns there, there are going to be drugs, and there are going to be felons, and they're going to not like the police. And you're going to be outnumbered. And the danger on a traffic stop is not the guy in the car, it's the neighborhood you're in.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's this constant go pace because people are calling for help, and there's nobody coming. You know, there are police officers asking for help, and there's nobody coming. You know, so it's safety is paramount, and that was ingrained early on. They have a sign on the wall there that says Richmond officers never give up. You know, and so yeah, it was just what you did, and you didn't question it, and it's just the way of life.
So you spent 20 years
22.
with Richmond, 22 years with Richmond. Go through some of your career highlights. What I know that's a long time to try to give us some highlights, but you've given me one story, so if you don't give it over the radio, or I'm going to give it for you. But
I always listen to the elders, you know, the veterans. And one guy, a lieutenant, had told me, he says, you want to make a name for yourself. Yeah. Okay, look where no one else is looking. Well, that's interesting. For him, he had, at that time on Strawberry Street, there were a lot of prostitutes, female prostitutes. And they'd really cleaned that area up and gentrified it and new restaurants and all that kind of stuff. And so I was in Sector 413, which is a downtown area, and there were several gay bars on the street. And cops, being a macho group in the 2000s, they didn't want to go down there. They didn't like responding to those places. I said, you know what? I will.
yeah,
It's a different vibe. They're different people, but there's male prostitution down there, and so I would hammer these guys. You know, a lot of them are homeless kids, and they're trying to make a buck, and they're trying to get by. And so I understood that. And so after a couple of times of hammering the guy, I'd be like, hey man, instead of me bothering you every other day, carrying you off to jail, why don't I buy you a sandwich? And so I'd take them to McDonald's. I'd take them to McDonald's on the way to lockup. And so I grew my network of informants. And the people see you, they start to trust you. And I was able to work that crew of guys into just a string of search warrants. Because they would pick up a John, and then the John would want to go get drugs. So then they're going to take them or they'd have to go themselves, into the projects to get drugs and come back. So these guys knew where all the drugs were being sold.
yeah,
So in showing them a little bit of respect, we were able to do 18 search warrants one year. And these were pre-planned raids in the projects, Highland Park, Southern Barton Heights. But we were getting drugs and guns off the street. And it only cost me a few Big Macs.
yeah. That's excellent.
Yeah.
And
we did a lot of good stuff like that.
And I think it kind of goes to even our conversations that we had. I mean, I had an idea of who you were before I even had met you. Hearing the stories coming out of your shift, like this is exactly what you're just a unique individual. I have had conversations with individuals who want to become police officers, and I think that we could all agree that probably the most difficult thing to teach somebody when it comes to policing, just being a communicator, being able to be naturally just communicate with somebody. That's what you're talking about. You're talking about being comfortable in an uncomfortable position, even at that time in policing. You just made it your own and maybe did it better than maybe the whole department probably could have at that time. Yeah,
I've always been. I've had several people in my family that are LGBT, and so I grew up in that environment, and so I don't care what color you are or who you're dating, or we're just all people.
Yeah,
and everybody's coming at it from a different place in life. As I told a young man the other day, don't measure your yardstick against somebody else's. You know, love yourself, be happy. And try and grow in your life, but that's all you can really do. And the world will come to you if you're happy. It's what we normally deal with are the unhappy people, who have no self-control, who've burned all the bridges in their life. They have no support network, and so they act out. And those are usually the people that you have to just talk to and figure out what their hooks and
red buttons.
And work them back to a place of civility so we can have a conversation and move forward.
But I think it's imperative, though, to bring up what you're talking about is you have to treat every individual just like that, like they're an individual. I think one thing that's difficult for first responders, not just law enforcement, it's just first responders in general, is it's every day. You're dealing with these individuals who are at the worst moments of their life. We're going in and we're dealing with multiple different critical incidences, and we're being asked to just carry that, champion all this stuff. Compassion fatigue. It's a very real thing.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's anybody who could probably talk better about how they've handled compassion fatigue than somebody like you in your position who, even after 22 years of being in Richmond, tells me when he comes here, I just want to go do police work. I just want to go talk to people. I just want to go help. And it just brings me to this. I just want to know what is the formula that's worked for you.
So a lot of people will talk about perception is reality, right? And so, we had a police chief, and he said, if there's a perception of low crime, there will be low crime. And I don't know that I necessarily believe all of that. Because I've never made rank. I've always stayed at the bottom because I really enjoy being out there every day. But instead of perception, when dealing with people, start thinking of perspective, right? Because anger is a projection of victimization, right? You've wronged me, that's why I'm so angry.
Yeah.
When you start switching it back and saying, okay, why is he angry? Why was he victimized? When we talked out of the apartment over there on Enterprise, it was, hey man, these people are talking bad about you. What's really going on? And it flipped on him to come out and talk, because somebody's going to listen. Yeah. Oh my God. A lot of people that we deal with are the pariahs of their community. No one wants to touch them, no one wants to talk to them. Sometimes they haven't eaten. And so if you touch their shoulder, show them a little compassion. One of my tricks is when you tell me your name, I'll spell it back to you, to make so you understand that I'm listening to you.
Okay.
And so I do have my little tricks, but it's that, I'm here to listen to you and get your side of it. And, from there we'll work out. People still got to go to jail. People, have rights and all that, and I'm all for that. But, and I may get off topic, but certainly the years have taught me a few things, but listening is such a key.
Yeah, some of the younger officers that have had the chance to work with Robert so far, they come up and they say in passing, it's almost like a kid that was showing a magic trick, and God, you should see what Robert was able to do. Yeah. Talking to a guy barricaded in a maybe that was one you're referring to in Enterprise.
Gino.
Hey, did you have any breakfast this morning? Just something way off topic threw his loop off. And I remember watching one too, a guy we fight with all the time. I think any officer that goes up against him, he ends up, and I think they had it was a protection order violation up on 10th, and just watching the body cam, just sliding up and small talk, and before you know it, you're shoulder to shoulder with him. He doesn't even know you're there, and he's in cuffs before he knows what happens. And you have all of our really, really young cops that just haven't experienced that yet. Just like what David Copperfield stuff was that was impressive.
Yeah, I told him we were there for a welfare check when we were actually there on a protective order violation. Right. He's like, oh, I'm fine. And I'm like, well, you know how it is nowadays. We got to check on people and, be LPC about it. Yeah, and the whole time I'm thinking, because I'll tell you, I don't, when I'm on the street, everything I do is intentional. There's misdirection, there's a lot of tricks. I can't give them all away. But it's
so David Copperfield really was the right word to use.
Everything is intentional that I do. How I talk to people, what I'm doing, and I'm paying attention the whole time. Where are their hands? What's going on?
I think one of the points that we should bring up that you had brought up, though, is the stories that we're getting back from the officers. And it's not that you're necessarily doing anything drastically different than the way that we've been doing it. Our officers are just hearing there's a different way to pose the question. Maybe there's different wording to the question. Maybe there's a difference in tone that we can ask the question. Maybe the question can be asked, but not right now. Maybe that question can be asked 3 questions from now. Those are the simple things, I think. Your life was patrol. You did 22 years of handling calls. That is an incredible amount of information that you have processed on what to do, what not to do, how to do it. You're talking about tricks. Really, I mean, it's just, you've figured the career out on how to do it safely. Exactly, survival.
Is there one call in particular that sticks out that wordsmithing probably played the key role, that if had you not had that skill set, it would have gone sideways on you?
Yes. It was early on. So I was at Lincoln Mews, which is a Section 8 apartment complex. And it was that shift change, right? So there's the 2-hour overlap. And I want to say at that time we probably had 15, 16 guys on shift. But there's a shift overlap, so now you're down to 6. And at that time I worked 3rd Precinct, which actually is still enclosed. They moved the map around, so it's still enclosed Highland Park. So I pretty much always worked Highland Park. Anyway, so I'm at a domestic by myself in Lincoln Mews, and it turned out to be nothing. And a second violent domestic comes out, and it's in the complex next door. So I believe I was like 311 at the time. 311, I'll take the call. Yeah. And my backing unit was coming from Carytown, which, if you know the geography of Richmond City, that's about an easy 20-minute drive. But it was also rush hour.
Oh.
So now you're talking at least a 30-minute drive.
Yeah. And your response is seconds.
Seconds. I'm right across the street.
Yeah.
And so Eric Sandlin was my back that day, and he's coming from Carytown. And so I pull in and I go upstairs. Violent domestic, males hitting female. I go up the stairs, doors open. There are 2 ladies sitting on the couch. One's obviously crying. The door's open. So, she, come on in. I walk in and I said, where is he? And she points to the kitchen. She said, he's right there. And I look in, and there's this football player, linebacker, and he's wearing a puffy jacket on top of that. And he's beating his hands together, So I reached my hand out, and I walked up to him. I said, hey, I'm Robert. I'm Robert. And I stuck my hand in his face, and he shook it. And I said, I hear you're having love problems. And he put his hands down, and he started talking to me. We talked for 20, 30 minutes in that kitchen, surrounded by knives, a guy 3 times my size. I'm obviously not a big person. And we just continued talking about his problems with his girlfriend, who was in the living room with her mom the whole time. And Eric Sandlin, Otto, he showed up, and he walks in, and I said, look, sir, you know, kind of got to get to that point where I need your name, right? Because I do need to move on a little bit. And he just turned around, he put his hands behind his back, and he said, officer, I'm wanted by the U.S. Marshals for armed robbery. Oh. And we put him in handcuffs, and he walked right out and jumped in the wagon, went off to jail. Otto said that he drove lights and sirens all the way from Carytown to get to me. Yeah. But that's how big of an area you could be in by yourself. There's just nobody. You know, they all get tied up.
How natural did that come to you, walking up to him and just being a person?
I didn't think there was no second thought to it. This is, you know, hey, I'm Robert. Hey, what's going on? Tell me what's going on here.
So is that an instinct you've just always had as a person, or is that something that maybe you hit a training or something at early on in your career that just made it there, or is it just who you are?
It's just I'm not really afraid of people. Yeah. You know, people don't scare me. So, you know, I've been in lots of fights, but you know, I've never really been afraid of people. Maybe I'm broken. I don't know. But that was probably my first year. Yeah, that I was a police officer that happened.
And the reason I asked that specific question, I guess, Robert, is sometimes individuals find it easier when you put your badge and your uniform on, that it's not playing a character. Playing a character would be the wrong way to put it, but you're taking more of a position of authority, and maybe you're a little bit more comfortable in yourself and your skills. But then there's some people who are just naturally are just a calming demeanor. I mean, we have those people here. Mm-hmm. Yes. I want to highlight one of them. I guess we had a barricaded suspect just last month where we were dealing with it, and watching Detective Winnery just calmly speak to somebody for the amount of time that she did. That's a skill. A skill is just being a human and talking to somebody. It's not, you know, Officer Kleinholz. It's not Detective Winnery. It's just Tiffany. It's Robert. It's just communication. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's why I asked that question specifically. Like, you probably always had that skill. Now you have a badge on, and it's just everyday work.
It is. And I have really enjoyed it, and I continue to enjoy it in my retirement gig, as I like to think of it. You know, the city of Dickinson has been just open armed and really great to me, and we really love it here. So I'm glad this happened. I have a granddaughter in town, and that's why we're here. We have a nice house that we bought. Actually, it turns out it's Officer Dillinger's grandfather's house.
Oh, excellent. I did not know that.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
Yeah, small town.
Yeah.
So we're really loving it, and you know, I look forward to many years here. You know, I'd like to do at least another 10. To be honest with you.
Wow.
So you've done 22 now in patrol. The next 10, what is the goals? What does Robert have for any goals that he has set for himself?
Oh, another 10 in patrol.
Okay.
You know, to be honest with you, the guys that you know, I grew up through all the years respecting the most. Not that supervision is needed, and I respect the heck out of you guys. But this is all I know how to do, you know. So I've really worked with some great people over the years, and I try to learn new stuff every day. And I'm looking forward to, I try to take officers aside and say, hey, you know, why don't we do it this way? Why don't we do it that way? Because I see things. We were talking today about when your guys go to calls at night, they turn their lights off. Where I'm from, you leave your parking lights on. And the reason was so somebody could find you, because we needed, you know, you're all, when I call for help, I really need help, right? Yeah. And people have to be able to see me from down the block. So we always left our parking lights on. And I understand why they don't do it here. They're trained, so that way they don't see you coming, and long rifles are more of a problem here than they were there. So there are lots of different things, and I understand that. But there's a continual, why are we doing it like this? Is there a better way to do it? Has it changed over the years?
Yeah, that's one of my I don't know if it makes my eye twitch, but we come up and stuff, and it takes maybe somebody an outside perspective like Robert to kind of call us out. I was like, yeah, why have we done that? And well, yeah, it's just no better explanation than that's always the way we've done it. So yeah, I know definitely, Matt, you're very forward-looking too and stuff like that. So we are most definitely open, all ears for stuff that's worked, that stuff that hasn't, because it's ultimately benefits our officers, benefits the community in the end.
Yeah, I mean, those are the type of things that you can bring to our agency, that we can, that we are a much more rural atmosphere, than what you're used to. But there's definitely something that you're going to be able to bring to us that can rub off, and we're seeing it in our officers. And I can remember your first shift that you were with your training car, and I want to say maybe it was even the first call for service you had here in the city. And I was worried. I was like, oh man, Richmond followed him here, because wasn't Rosie's gas station foot pursuit with Officer Bodel? That may have been your first actual police contact with anybody. We ended up being a foot pursuit, and Officer Bodel ended up tackling somebody. And I was like, oh, I hope he didn't bring Richmond with him. But it's been fantastic. I mean, we keep hearing just excellent things like that, where you're not challenging or bucking the system, but you're bringing a different perspective, right, and you're willing to have a conversation with the system, and just with how our system works, and with why we do what we do here. So it's been fantastic.
Well, this is I was military police, and I worked in Montana for a year back in 05 to 06, and then went back to Richmond. And that has shown me everybody does it a little bit differently, from campus police departments, city police departments, to rural, east to west to the Midwest. Everybody does it a little bit differently. Now, we're all trying to do the same thing. And so you take the good and you leave the bad behind. And it really is. It's a conversation.
Yeah.
Why? And can you answer that question? And everything you should be doing is intentional, and you should do it the same way every way. Repeatability. Policing is a job that you learn by rote, by doing it. There are manuals, but who's going to get through the manuals like that?
Well, I think it's so important. You bring up officer safety at the beginning. Officer safety is paramount. It's critical for everybody. But then when you come into what are you policing, what are you actually trying to combat? We talk about it here. We have different problems than what Richmond had. The military had different problems. So your police force is really being massaged and manipulated to try to figure out what is the current trend, what is the current problem that you're there to protect. Because ultimately, when we work for the city of Dickinson, we work for the citizens of Dickinson.
Absolutely.
So realistically, what we think we should be doing may not be the correct answer all the time. So it's going to take a conversation. It's going to take looking at things. Maybe it's looking at trends. Maybe it's having conversations. Maybe it's coffee with a cop and something gets brought up, and all of a sudden we realize there's something on the horizon that we didn't know about at the time. But no, it's exactly right.
It actually kind of brings up a good point. In Richmond, did you have much, I don't know, is it proactive policing or the sense of like, I guess more community-oriented policing? Did you have elements of that? Did you have time to even do that stuff?
Oh, absolutely. Those things came and went with the years, but absolutely, they had coffee with a cop, and there were different initiatives over the years. I went through a number of police chiefs. I remember one chief came up with this idea, and he called it 1,000 Nights. And the idea is he would take half of his police force, so roughly 300 people, and he would create an operation with this massive number. Once we did a checkpoint coming out of the bar scene, and the checkpoint was 100 officers long. Some ridiculous number. Probation and parole was there. They had buses to carry people to jail in. I mean, it was a massive undertaking. He did checkpoint at the toll booths, in the morning. You got thousands of cars coming through, and they're doing a checkpoint. Another one was we lined up easily 100 men across and walked the projects. So there's an officer every few feet, and it was a show of strength, and after that, I want to say we got in 4-man cars, and we started hitting those corners, the open air drug markets. My group and I made 3 drug arrests from the first one to the third one, just taking the first guy to jail. We got crack off a porch, grabbed that guy. Then on the way, we saw a drug deal, so we grabbed that guy. He had a quarter ounce of, or an 8-ball of cocaine. And then there was a guy with a mask riding a bicycle in the dark, so we stopped him, and he had a pocket full of drugs. So there were these initiatives that some of them were very proactive in the drug aspect, but they would have town halls. They would do every time there's a homicide, they have a reset, which is the command staff comes out and they go door to door, talking to the people. There was another time that they came up a list of the most the people who had the highest amount of recidivism, repeat offenders, and the Commonwealth attorney, so like the state's attorney,
Sure.
and one of the command staff would go to their house and knock on their door, say, "Hey, look, you just got out of jail, right? What is it that we're not doing because you continue to get caught and we're having to process you? Let's offer you services. Is there something we can do for you? Because we're serious, right? You've got the chief of police and, the state's attorney here saying, either you straighten up or we're going to meet again, right? And we've noticed you." So they had a lot of different programs to reach out and a lot of out-of-the-box thinking. There are always neighborhood meetings to go to, and the patrolmen get tasked to go to those. There have been lots of neighborhood meetings, lots of homeowners associations. And they have a community service division, youth and family. There's all kinds of things going on there.
So I'm curious as to when you're talking about these like heavy proactive units, especially coming through like a neighborhood where we're having problems inside of a neighborhood. What is the typical residents' feeling? Like not necessarily somebody who's committing one of these crimes, but they're seeing 100 men walk through the street and cleaning up. So what is a typical citizen that's in that area? Did you ever get to chat with anybody who got to give their perspective? How positive was that?
Oh, all the time. The people would stop you, and some of them are braver than others, because these are high crime neighborhoods. And they would say, "Thank you, because if it wasn't for you, this neighborhood would burn down." There are neighborhoods that every single door is painted red, because the Bloods have the block. There's a lot of serious things going on. We put a police car on Barton Avenue and they burnt it. These things happen.
Yeah.
So these are tough neighborhoods, but I'd say 95% of those people, they're living there, they're working there, they're raising their kids, and they're just good, honest people, And you get others that there was one guy that his name was Blunt, and he would take a taxi from the suburbs to come sell drugs in the city. Right, every day he's getting a taxi back and forth.
Because Blunt wanted to live in a nice neighborhood, but he
right, he wanted to live in a nice neighborhood, and so Jamal, I think was his name, Jamal Blunt, and so we knew where he would be, and we knew what was going on, and he had a warrant, something for not paying fines, something minor but good enough to grab him, and so what we would do is when we would let him stew. Right, because we knew he had a warrant, and if he was over here, we knew he wasn't dealing, right? But if he was in the park, he was. And so we're just keeping an eye on him. And finally, he's in the park, and we've been watching him from a distance. And these are just patrolmen, and we snatch him up on the warrant, and he had a key in his pocket. He didn't have any drugs on him, but he had a key in his pocket. And we were looking there, thinking about it. That key's got to go be a mailbox key. So we went to the nearest mailboxes, and we pulled all the drugs out of the mailbox.
Yeah.
We got him down to the lockup, and during the strip search, they found more drugs. So he went to jail for quite a bit. So there's a lot of people who really appreciate the hard work, and there are a lot of predators that come into town and prey on, vicious predators that prey on vulnerable populations, whether it be the gay community downtown, whether it be, the projects. Most of the people you arrest there don't even live there. To Highland Park. Just there's an influx during the day. The city population almost doubles in the daytime. So you go from 250,000 to 500,000 people.
Just like that.
Just like that.
What do you think is, our overarching opening theme here was crime trends and stuff like that. So from when you first started, back in the early 2000s to just when you left, even just for, I guess you could speak even specifically just to Richmond or even just nationwide, what's your take on, where crime is going in America? What, the challenges that departments are facing with retention and staffing and stuff like that. Where do you foresee like those types of areas going, nationwide and I guess even more locally, I guess?
Well, there seems to be, over the years, you're going to the elimination of bail, that trend has not helped. There was a time when I could go to court and articulate to a judge. Now in Richmond, you testified to everything you did, every ticket, every arrest. You were there. So I've thousands of hours of testifying. And if you could go to a judge that was particularly liberal, but if I could articulate to him, this is how this person obstructed my justice. This is why I stopped this person. They'd throw the book at him. If you could explain it properly, not that, you didn't want to be harassing people. If I bring in 10 tickets at the same stop sign, the judge is going to convict the first one and throw out the other 9. All right, because now you're picking on the populace. We didn't want that. But you could have a conversation with the attorneys and the judge and the defense attorneys, and they'd be like, yeah, this guy's terrible. We should keep him out of society for a little bit. I remember that there was a shooting at the Captain D's, and they said Little Red did it. And I happen to believe I knew who Little Red was. And sure enough, it was him. And he was 21 years old. And I remember being at the trial. And this is a kid who has tattoos of blood coming down his neck, tattoos on his face, tattoos, curse words on his knuckles. I mean, a real stellar individual. And at the trial, which he was convicted, the defense brought up the fact that he'd been in and out of prison and had a terrible childhood. And so the jury gives their recommendation of 20 years. This was a drug deal over a week gone bad. And the defense is now saying that, it's not this young man's fault, society has done it. And anyhow, the sentencing guidelines only say 8 years. So Judge Cᴜɣ, this is upper circuit court there, he starts talking. He says, I'm well aware of the sentencing guidelines. I helped write them. And I understand this young man has been done wrong by society. In fact, if you look at his history, he should have gotten more time for all of these armed robberies he committed as a juvenile. Yeah. But the state continues to let him out and back free in society, and he can't keep it straight. He said, so I can't deny a jury of his peers saying they don't want him with them for the next 20 years, that he needs to be separate. And there was this overarching intelligent management of cases, and we're getting away from that. Your prosecutors who are elected have a tendency to want to move towards different policies. The current prosecutor in Richmond, Ms. McKeechan, she ran on a platform of decriminalizing social crimes. And they won't even prosecute them anymore. Drunk in public, which is not a crime here, but trespassing, shoplifting. Your first drug felony is reduced to a misdemeanor. And so it has incentivized some people to commit crime.
Yeah, we're lucky. I mean, I would say that we're extremely lucky here in Western North Dakota to where both our state's attorney's office and our city prosecutor, very pro law enforcement.
Yes.
You know, when we have conversations with our prosecutors' offices and we let them know, hey, we're dealing with this complication or this problem, and we need your partnership right now to help execute something or a goal of ours. It's really not like pulling teeth. I mean, they are a true partnership in law enforcement here with us. But I agree with you. I think that's definitely a part of what we have going on. The other piece you mentioned, Richmond is operating at what, 2/3 of its capacity that it could have as law enforcement.
Yes.
And we're here in Dickinson right now, and I mean, our commission has given us the ability to hire 4 more officers 2 years ago. And we do have a standard. You brought it up. You mentioned that we do have great, fine men and women that work here, but we struggle. You know, we have a lateral program. We brought you in on a lateral program, but there's not a lot of people wanting to do this line of work any longer.
No.
So I'm curious, in your opinion, what do you think can help bring young people or bring people that are going to be good at this job, a good fit for law enforcement, into this career field to show them how fulfilling it actually could be?
I think that you guys actually do really, the benefits and the pay here is good. It really is. You guys have treated me phenomenally as a lateral, and so I thank you for that. You made me want to come. To do the job does take a particular kind of people, and I know that you guys have some programs at the college, at DSU here, getting out in the community, being very visible. I know a lot of times I go to fast food restaurants and I'll see a strapping young man, you know, behind it, and he's just ringing people up, and I'm like, hey, have you ever thought about law enforcement? And they're like, no. I'm like, hey, you only work 14 days a month, pretty good pay. And they're like, oh, I'll give it a thought. So I've always, you know, tried to encourage, you know, people that I thought wanted to do the job to come. I know that they sign-on bonuses, recruitment bonuses, those sorts of things to incentivize the men, you know. But in the end, it's you've got to look for military, you know, different events, community events, you know, with the focus on recruiting. And you guys do a phenomenal job. I see the Bearcat at DSU all the time since I live right over there.
For good reasons.
Yeah.
For good reasons.
Let the kids climb all over it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really just, you know, getting out and getting the word out. Yeah. Guys could think about getting a billboard up or something. You know.
Well, part of this is getting this resurrected too. You know, the last panel. Oddly enough, you bring that up. The last interview panel that I sat on for the patrol spots. There's 2 separate individuals that we had interviewed on there that specifically mentioned this podcast as being maybe not necessarily the catalyst for them to apply, but at least gave them an inside look at what kind of department we generally are, the type of people that we hire, so trying to just be open, kind of an open book for the public and stuff like that. So yeah, I think we're kind of a, you know, again, this is not to brag or anything like that. I kind of generally like to eat humble pie a lot, but I think we got it right on this part of the state, the way we're doing stuff. So a lot of the misconceptions that are out there nationwide about what law enforcement is and the lack of interest in wanting to pursue this profession, I think are completely unfounded. I mean, there's so much that I mean, Robert even alluded to the instrument of change that you can be in someone's life if you really want to do that and be that type of person that knows that this is a difficult job that very few can do, but even fewer people can do well. Yeah, I think that's what you can. That's what's carried me 20 years is knowing that it's something to be proud of. In you know, self-actualization, I guess is kind of where I'm going for it. So
yeah, a friend of mine retired, and we were having a conversation on one of his last days. And I said, you know, you go to, I was going to 10 to 20 calls a day, you know, most of them by myself, for 20 years, 22 years. That's roughly, you know, 150 days a year. So that's 3,000 calls a year potentially over 20 years. That's 60,000 people I met. you know. And the same for him, you know, 50, 60,000 people whose lives you either change for the better or hopefully move them in a direction where they could change for themselves. You know, you don't see a lot of true victims, but there were some true victims that I was able to help, and I don't know if someone else could have helped them better, but I happened to be there at the time, and we really made a difference. And some people got some serious time that really deserved it.
You know, my background, I've been on the podcast. I was a guest in the podcast, and my background is patrol, similar to yours, Robert. And I think one thing that people believe when they think about policing is they think about these high adrenaline pumping situations. And I guess for me, like, a lot of my career highlights are not those. It's the simple things that you're talking about. It's the everyday encounters where, for whatever reason, it was me that was called to that call. And I didn't want to allow whatever to be going on to happen any longer. And I wanted to take it a step further. And you get to really look back at a career once you get to the stage that you guys are at and think the differences that you made, and they're substantial. It's real. Like, when you stack up what you've actually accomplished in your lifetime, I urge young people that are looking for a sense of purpose, when you think about this career field, we have a lot to offer. I mean, you can come into this career field, and if you want some high energy things, we can give you that.
Sure.
We can give you a little bit of that. If you want something where you want to, maybe you're missing your high school, your college team feel, that group effort, that like locker room camaraderie, we'll give you that. If you want to just be able to have a sense of purpose, to feel like after the end of your day, you really did accomplish something. I mean, that's the key. I really do think that is the moment, and that's a lot of what we see from this new generation. They really want to know that they're making a difference. And I just don't know that we're appealing enough to them, because we're not attracting that group. And if that's what they want, I just think that we really could be doing something more to bring them in, because that's exactly what we need right now. It's just people that have a sense of duty. I mean, Mike and I talked about this 2 weeks ago. The sense of duty is, it's not missing in our department, but we definitely could use a push of people that want to do the right thing, and they want to do extra just because that's just who they are. And it's just what makes them them.
And I tell people a lot, is that, you know, they'll complain or they'll say this is a problem or that's a problem. Well, then be the change you want to see, you know. When COVID hit, there was a lot of pushback against masks. So I started wearing a mask. My mother had cancer, and so I started wearing a mask because I was cooking for her every night. And a lot of the guys would look at me and they're like, "Why are you wearing a mask?" Dude, this stuff's real. It's out there. It's coming, and it's going to be mandated. And we all have our opinions, and those opinions change. But I started doing it because I wanted to be the change and show the other guys in the precinct, you know. And there's a lot of people. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of macho. You know, in a precinct of 100 men. You know, the SWAT commander was one of my lieutenants. You know, so this is, you know, there's a lot of eyes on you, and I'll just start wearing a mask every day. And then, you know, COVID came and went, and we had the riots too, and there was a lot of bad that went with that. I don't know if the Robert E. Lee, was it Lee statue? Yeah, I think it was a Lee statue. That was in Richmond on Monument Avenue. That made the cover of Time magazine for all the graffiti that they put on that. There was a lot going on in those times. But yeah, I would go down there. I actually worked day shift, thankfully, at that time. So I was usually tasked with cleaning up the messes of the night before. And I would meet these young people that so desperately want to see change in society. And I would say, why don't you become part of the change? You know, get involved in the system. If you don't like the system, change it from within. And there's a lot of opportunities there. And I think social work is doing well with a lot of people, mental health. Fire departments seem to be fairly well staffed. You know, and I think it'll come to us. It's just going to be that people are, you know, feel braver. I think they're scared. I think a lot of people say, that job's not for me. I'd be scared.
Right.
Well, you don't have to be. There's a bunch of us. You know, you're not alone.
Yep.
You know, you're not going to go to a call by yourself here because, you know, we have a shift. We're very well staffed, very well equipped.
But those are critical things that we talk about here, and that's some of our selling point. Like when Lieutenant Handel and I are talking to young people trying to get into this career field, it is just that. It's Dickinson's unique. We're going to be able to give you a lot of call variety, so you're going to be able to do a lot of different things. But exactly what you said, you're never alone. You may have to problem solve something by yourself to a certain degree, but Robert's there. Robert's talking to the other half of the problem, and you guys can come together. You can come to a solution. And I just think that people have this perception that I'm going to be in my car and I'm going to handle my own workload. Then I come back. It's really not that. It's almost every problem that comes through our department here. It's ate by an entire team. Yep. You know, and we're not talking about silly things where it's a gas drive off and we have a shift showing up to it, but it's really a nice feeling knowing that you don't have to handle these things by yourself any longer.
No, you don't have to. You don't have to handle it by yourself any longer. It is actually really nice. And your backup, if you were to have an issue, there's usually anything hot. Several people go to it, but yeah, I mean the city is only so wide. So there's extra help is available. You know, you guys have done a tremendously good job. I tell people that things are done here a little bit better. The private jail, oh my goodness. You know, you could spend an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours on a Friday night in the city of Richmond. You could spend 3 hours trying to get somebody in jail. Here it's 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Your cars are equipped. I mean, as a lateral, this is like Shangri-La to me. We had MDTs and radios. That was it in a car. Blue lights on top. You guys have all the paperwork. You have all the stuff from Axon and the radar and the cages. We had 2 cages per precinct. You have a cage in every car. I'm just blown away by how well equipped, how well thought out all of it is with the access. That you for the school portion that you guys have done. I mean, all of those things that you've really thought out and done well. I'm surprised and overwhelmed. You know, I come from a place that if you didn't bring it with you, it wasn't available.
Yeah.
You know, you could ask, you know, but yeah, you really needed to bring stuff with you. I was a patrol rifle operator. I had to buy my own patrol rifle. You know, they're not going to give you one. You know, there were people that had them, but by and large, if you wanted something, you had to make it happen.
You know, that brings me back. One of the things that the lieutenants and I chatted about at the beginning of the year was staffing levels were low. I mean, realistically, go back 10 months ago, and our staffing levels were low. We were getting to that point where, we had lieutenants putting uniforms on. We were trying to cover some calls and work some shifts. And we came up with something. We said, you know, we keep trying. We keep talking about recruiting, but we know that recruiting, it's going to take 10 months before that person's going to handle a call. So we started trying to think out of the box, and what can we do to make the life of a patrol officer or a detective a little bit more efficient, take a little bit of load off of them. And that became kind of our theme and our goal this year as we started researching projects and we started trying to figure out what direction we should go with. So I guess it's good to hear, you know, that we're obviously making headway into some of those areas and those avenues with you. Oh, absolutely.
I come to work now, this is it. I don't bring up, I love all the gear and that kind of stuff that you guys gave me. And you gave me everything that I'm wearing, pretty much. But I just walk out and jump in the car. I don't have a big old patrol bag. My patrol bag was one of the luggage. It was a backpack on wheels and with a handle, and so I would get out and walk out to the car. And, you know,
do your TSA pre-check on your way into your squad car.
Yeah. Bandages, medical stuff. I mean, literally pretty much everything you needed, you had to bring with you. You know, and I knew guys that would fill up the front seat, and they got this bag and that bag, and they put this, women too. I mean, just a great group of people that I used to work with, but it was hard scrap, you know.
and the amount that we've invested into technology too. We were just through the budget season, got next year's budget approved. We're you had mentioned Robert about Axon. That's our body cam, but we have that in our vehicles now as well. Our in-car video system that's integrated with something called LPR, license plate reader technology. That technology is so amazing. The pursuit that we were talking about earlier today, or really at the show that happened later last week. The suspect vehicle was coming at 80 to 90 miles an hour closing speed, and it was a stolen vehicle. And our officer that was setting up the spike strips, that MDT or the in-car video system picked up that stolen vehicle off that license plate at 10:30 at night.
Yep.
Going
dark,
80 miles an hour.
Dark 90 miles an hour.
Yep.
Through a
crazy.
ditch, picked up the license plate.
That's crazy. And then all the stuff that's on the horizon with AI and some assisted stuff like that. We're looking at Axon also has a capability of uploading a body cam video, and it almost more or less writes a report or a suggested version of a report with what happened or what it detected within the video. Obviously, there's checks and balances. There's policy that's going to have to go into place with that. But the amount, immense time saver that's going to be for officers. They're not going to be in here having to type reports. They're out there having fun and catching bad guys and stuff like that on the street. Yeah,
exactly. That continues to be our goal. Our mission here is Robert is good at dealing with people. And what can we do to help him maximize what he's good at and what he's good at for our community? That continues to be what we're trying to do on the back end here. I tell you what, Robert, next time we bring you on, we got to work on one thing. You talk about us, as in Mike and I or our department, a lot. We got to make that more of an our department. That's a Chief Ciani piece. He's you're part of us. You've been part of us since June, and we couldn't be any happier to have you here on our department. We got incredibly lucky that your grandchild is here and that your stepdaughter is here and that you wanted to move your family out here. We got incredibly lucky that you. You're a diamond in the rough. There was no rough bringing it in. So I want to ask you one more question before I pitch you over to Mikey, and that would be, you've given a ton of advice, but if I was to tell an officer to just fast forward to the end of the interview, 22 years of being a patrol officer, what is the single most beneficial piece of advice that you would give the next officer that was going to put a DPD uniform on?
Oh, my goodness. Single? Oh, that's really hard. A single piece. I would say, and you guys do a tremendously good job. Like I said, the talent that you have for finding the people, tremendous. Some really good, solid officers here. Coming from a place that really goes by quantity, to come to a place that values quality is fabulous. But it would be, one piece of advice I would say is don't forget the forest for the trees, right? Because there's nothing worse than a drug officer that can't do a traffic accident, or a traffic officer that can't log drugs in or do a drug arrest. And so you really need to learn every piece of the puzzle. And sometimes you see people fall short on that. And if you know every piece and how it works, why it works, they talk about that in the academy and stuff like that, but you got to read the codes you're writing. You got to understand the laws. You got to stay up with court. Because if you can see the whole forest, then you can be the police officer you want to be. You can really get out there and make that change we're talking about. You can't make the change that you want to see if you don't know how to do it. But there's always a way to do it. So you just got to not forget there's a whole forest.
Yeah, that's excellent. I just think this is a unique job to where you can continue to learn something new every single day, and you can keep challenging yourself to be better. There's that old saying, you are the jack of all trades but the master of none. I think in that we tend to forget that being the jack of all trades in this line of work is actually a fantastic quality to have. So I think that's excellent advice.
Yeah. You get guys who just want to do DUIs. They just want to do accidents. Man, just volunteer for all of it. Learn the whole thing.
Yeah.
And you know, because there are always going to be little nuggets of something that's different that you're going to come up with and figure out a new way to do it. Or I really do pride efficiency. You know, let's get this done. Let's get back out. You know, you guys have a beautiful workspace, which really helps. But I like being out there. I don't want to be in here. You know, so I'm always out there, and I'm always trying to do things more efficiently. And after 20, I'm still learning more stuff. But like you were talking about our department, I feel like there's an album that recently came out, and the title of it was "Right Place, Wrong Person," and that's kind of how I feel.
Okay.
Like it's going to take some time, you know, for me to be completely comfortable. I was talking to a new officer today, and I said, you know, they're still working through FTO and all those things. And I said, you know, about year 3, 4, 5, you will have seen enough that you will think that you can handle anything. I've been through a lot, but it's going to take me a little while to be comfortable. So right now I'm still in the right place. I'm just the wrong person, and I'm trying to become the right person here.
Yeah, well, we'll keep helping you along the way. If you need anything, you just let us know.
I will.
Yeah.
Well, Mike.
Awesome. You gonna read it out here? So this is the last part, the speed cuffing.
We're going to do a little bit of speed cuffing here.
Okay.
Robert.
I've seen this because I, too, am a fan of the podcast.
All right. You let me know when you're ready. Get that monster in you like a good patrol officer would.
So it's 30 seconds here, and I'll key it up. Here we go.
Merlot or Pinot Noir?
Merlot.
Fifth wheel camping or roughing it in a tent?
Tent.
How about your favorite vacation destination?
Bugs Island Lake.
Bob Vila or Mike Holmes?
Bob Vila.
Dickinson PD's viral lip sync video in 18 was sung by who of what song?
Taylor Peters, and it is size. I know the artist.
Yeah. Because you had it on your pre-interview thing. You do K-pop, Korean pop? Yeah.
Yeah, we exclusively listen to.
I'm drawing a blank now.
Yeah.
Gangnam Style.
Gangnam Style. There we go.
I knew it was
Style.
Psy. I knew it was Taylor Peters.
Yeah.
We watch a lot of K-pop at my house.
Okay.
So we're big fans of that genre, and it's actually RM, who's a member of BTS, which is a Korean band. That is his album.
Yeah.
Right place, wrong person.
There you go. There you go. See?
Yeah. Everything influences you, and you don't realize it, you know, but it does. Everything influences you.
Right on.
Well, excellent. Thank you to Mike for nagging me enough to finally jump into the driver's seat here.
Yeah. This is a good one. I mean, right out of the cannon. This is looking forward to the next couple. Now we're going to be pretty consistent with it now, and we'll rock and roll, keep it going.
Awesome.
Well, I hope to come back. Thank you, gentlemen, for inviting me. It was an honor to sit with you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, thank you to everybody for tuning in.
I'll lead you out, and make sure to subscribe here at Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon Music, anywhere you get your podcasts. Also upload to YouTube. We're working on a interesting concept of doing this live with some citizen chats that we can engage with. We're working on that. See if we can get that to you, but stay safe.
All right. Take care, everybody.